Welcome back to the Prosperity Collabs podcast. My name is Chris Mueller, and over the next hour, we are going to have a conversation with one of the most influential people in the real estate industry today. His name is Marc King, and he is the president of Keller Williams International. Now, if you are not familiar with the real estate industry, Keller Williams International is the largest real estate brand in the world, and Marc is the president of that organization. Now, that's impressive enough, but what you will hear over the course of this interview is a story that is nothing short of inspirational. Marc is just a treasure of information, but the mindset, the tips, just the work ethic that you're going to hear that has allowed Marc to come from very humble beginnings all the way to leading this international company. I'm going to tell you, it is an interview you do not want to miss. You want to listen. If you're driving, pay close attention. If you're watching on YouTube at home, take some notes because there's stuff you're going to want to apply to your life. Now, before we start, I just want to warn you, my audio is just a little bit wonky on this. And I don't know why, but Marc's is crystal clean and good. So if you're listening to me and you're like, I don't know, just ignore me. Listen to Marc because there's so much good here. I don't want you to miss it. My audio's not terrible. It's just a little wonky. So that's the only caveat today. Without further ado, here's my conversation with Marc King, president of Keller Williams International.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here, Chris, and I'm super proud of all the work you're doing here in California.
Well, thank you, sir. I have to say, Marc, this is overwhelming to be on the show.
Stop.
And
I'll make sure it's not overwhelming by the time we're done. It'll be perfect.
But I look at KW and I see, Gary Keller is sort of the Steve Jobs of the real estate industry. But KW has a really big heart, and in a lot of ways, that's personified in Will Anderson.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And I think the challenge in any industry is succession. Right?
Yes.
And so I just kind of say this by, I look at the current leadership of KW and succession, all those things, and I see, where the heart succeeds is really in your office. I feel like you kind of took on that mantle.
Yeah, I think, we say that we're standing on the shoulders of giants, and that's certainly true. And when we say that, we think of Mo Anderson, we think of Gary Keller, who I also call the Steve Jobs of Keller Williams, but nicer. And because he's great to work with. You hear stories about Steve. I didn't get to work with Steve. But yes, you're right. And when I think of standing on the shoulders of giants, I think of the agents. And you said for agents by agents, and that sounds great as a clip, but the reality is we live that every single day. The reason Gary Keller is so smart and that he's so far ahead, I figured out all of his secrets, and I'm here to expose them all today. And the number one secret is he is in dialogue every single day with top agents. His knowledge of what's going on the ground is impeccable, beyond anybody I've ever met in this business and across a wide swath of the industry. So he knows when California is leading the way into a recession, for example, and units are dropping and all of those things. And so he can take action faster. I am super proud to carry on whatever legacy I can for Mo Anderson. This company would not be here if not for Mo Anderson. And she was really the cultural matriarch of this company. And, I call Keller Williams a Disneyland for real estate agents because it's a place where entrepreneurs thrive, but it's a place where you feel like you have 200,000 extended family members. And the challenge with carrying on a legacy like that is how do you recreate the magic, right? How do you make the person who's entering today, like I did 23 years ago, fall in love with this company and have it change the trajectory of your life like it has for me and countless others. And I think that's the burden of succession is to both bring your knowledge, skills, appetite, energy, work ethic, all of those things, but also to carry on the legacy in a world that's changed dramatically in our industry.
Yeah, absolutely. I always think of it as it's easier to start revolutions than it is to be the government.
100%. And at Keller Williams, it's not about what you get, it's about who you become.
Yeah.
And this is a self-development company. We could be in stock sales, and I think we'd have the same culture, the same mission, vision, value, belief, and perspective. We happen to be in real estate, which is all of our favorite industries, and where we believe we can help people truly go from, my story growing up in poverty to being able to change their family tree financially.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. I know a little bit about your story. I've had the opportunity to sit with and be in workshops with you,
Yeah.
and to be affected by you. You mentioned Keller Williams as a people development company. How did that journey begin for you? I mean, I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on the biopic.
Yeah.
Once upon a time, you joined this company and something happened.
Man, it's not the story I wish it was. I was a real estate investor. I was working in corporate America, and I was tired of that environment. And so I, like so many of us, fell for the late night infomercial of it's easy, it's free, you make all the money you want, you don't have to work anymore. And at 26 years old, decided I went and told everybody I knew that I'm going to be a professional real estate investor. And they all told me that I was nuts and I was going to lose all my money. And I did. And so there was one random courthouse step meeting with some guy that I owe my entire career to that I don't even remember his name, who said, if you had a real estate license, you'd have more data, more information on these properties. So you wouldn't just show up and speculate. I thought I was an investor. I was a speculator. Right. Had no idea what I was doing. And so I thought, well, maybe that's the answer. I'll go get my real estate license. I'll get access to the local MLS. I'll have more data. It'll make me a better investor. And what I found, Chris, is everyone knew a real estate agent, which was super disheartening in terms of building a real estate career. But what I also found is there's very little traffic in the extra mile. And so I built a system, and it was a simple, silly system to find great investment properties. It was, in those days, we had broker books because the MLS didn't have all the information. And so I'd go to all the competing brokers. I'd pull their new listings. I'd look at 100 properties on paper or online, to visit 10, to make offers on 3, to buy 1. And because I lost all my money very early on, I had to do this as a representative of someone else. And so what happened very quickly is I found an investor. Turns out they're everywhere. People love to make money if you know what you're doing. The issue is getting them to trust that you know what you're doing. So because of this process, I impressed an investor named Brad, and Brad would flip a house a month, and he'd make $20,000 a month, and I'd make my $2,200 to $2,500 a month. And that's how all of this started. And what I found very quickly is in this industry, my work velocity, I didn't know anything different. I've always had to work my tail off, always had multiple jobs, played multiple sports in school just to pay for school, that kind of stuff. And so for me, it wasn't a choice. It was, if you want to eat, you gotta work this way. And because of this industry at that time, there weren't a lot of people in that high revved hustle mode of your entire well-being's on the line. I had left a 6-figure corporate job. I had egg on my face everywhere from everyone I knew. They thought I was nuts, and I probably was. And what happened though is I got so good at finding those properties and finding great deals that other investors became attracted to what I was doing. In a very short time, I built up a database. I learned from a book. I was a pre-reader. I thought I was really special. I was a pre-reader of the Millionaire Real Estate Agent book.
That's pretty special.
Yeah, pretty special. Only to find out that every market center in the company was a pre-reader of the MREA. And so we had all the systems and models and white papers, and I thought, this is genius. And what I'll do is I'll build a database, and I'll just feed it every single day. I'll meet new people every day who are interested in investing in real estate and they want what I have to sell and what my skill sets are valuable to them. And so in very short order, I was the person in my market you went to if you wanted to find a great deal. As I started to sell more and more properties, I started to save more and more money, and I started to buy my own properties. And that worked great until it didn't. And in 2007, my team got to number 1 in the region, and again, not knowing what we were doing, not hiring all the right people, making all the right moves, but just in full hustle gear, right? And I also made a lot of mistakes of getting over leveraged. At that time, they would give you as much money as you wanted to, and found myself with $6 million of debt, or $6 million of the properties, $4 million of debt on them. And then very quickly, and after Lehman Brothers fell, I had a chance encounter with my banker who said, your assets are worth $2 million now, and we need our $4 million back. And I said, you can't have your $4 million back because I have 30-year loans on them. And they said, it's right here in the contract. We can call your loan. And I joked at the time, I'm a realtor. I didn't read the contract, and that didn't go over very well. And so I found myself again on a, what turned into the short version, it would turned into a 6-year journey. While everyone was telling me to file bankruptcy and get out, my Southern Baptist grandfather said, "We don't do that in this family. You borrowed money, you will pay it back." And so that was a really tough time in my life. That was selling plasma. That was eating cheeseburgers and a Diet Coke every day at McDonald's. It was a really rough time, but after 6 years, paid every dollar I ever borrowed back, and do not borrow money to this day because of that experience. And so, but because of that hustle and learning what you can do, and I don't like the word hustle. Work velocity because hustle. I call it work velocity because hustle kind of infers in today's culture, kind of infers that's not something that's not really what I would describe it as. It's working really hard on the right activities, doing the right things more often than others.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
It's the 20% with prejudice.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And it's doing what other people are not willing to do, and obviously in an ethical, legal way. But it's every single day. It's the analogy is we all love to celebrate the Michael Phelps of the world, and he swims for 2 minutes and wins a gold medal. What you didn't see was the 16 years of 6 hours a day in the pool.
Yeah.
With a very boring, I don't know how, I'm not a swimmer, but I don't know how many different ways there are to practice at getting better at swimming.
It's awful.
16 years?
Yeah.
I don't understand.
I did it for 6 years, I think. And, you're singing the national anthem in your head. You're doing, it's just repetitive.
Yeah.
But I think there's something, because you said that early on, you're like, I just created this really simple system. Mm-hmm. And, when I've heard you speak about success in my chair as a team leader consultant with Keller Williams, I keep coming back on conferences going, get more boring.
Yeah. You have to be boring. There is no such thing as success without really boring everyday activities.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that's in our modern era when, everything is just pushing you to get that dopamine hit, right? That impulse.
Yeah.
Boring is harder than ever.
Well, and today, and this is, I don't want to sound like the old man, get off my lawn, and I know I do now that I'm 50 years old and I look back, but it's so hard for me not to get online and comment on all the fake gurus out there, and I'm sure there's some wisdom in everything, and yet I've watched an entire culture as a stepdad of a 16 and 20-year-old, I watched them get influenced by people that I know are not actually doing what they're teaching. And that's a big problem for me. It's so much so. And I look, I'm from Missouri, the show me state. And I want to see your P&L. I want to see your balance sheet. If you're going to get on YouTube and talk about how you became super rich and it wasn't that hard and you hustled your way there and there's no hard work, it's just all shortcuts, would be like teaching swimmers, don't worry about the 16 years in the pool, just show up at the Olympics and you'll win.
Yeah, show up at the Olympics.
Buy my course. There you go. Buy my course. Don't take the cocaine. Buy my course for $395, and you too will win a gold medal.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Mark, your story, and I think this is important. There's perseverance in it, right? Life, for whatever reason, you had multiple opportunities to take the excuse, say,
yes,
tried it, didn't work.
Yeah.
Accept mediocrity. You did it.
I'm stubborn.
Okay.
I told a boss of mine one time that the best thing about me is that I stick, and the worst thing about me is that I stick. Meaning, sometimes to my own detriment. I will stay at something that I believe in until I see it all the way through, until I succeed at it. Here's the other thing. I've had 11 different official roles in this company in 23 years. I have failed at every single one of them until I didn't.
Right.
And along the way, from a self-esteem perspective, especially growing up the way that I did, and it sounds weird looking at a white male today that would have this feeling. I grew up as a minority. I was taught in my own family that our family doesn't have those things. We aren't those rich people. We don't have. That's not our family's path, right? Our family's path is different than that. You can't have that. And I've always had a curiosity to challenge that mindset. In fact, my mission in life is to challenge limited mindset of a predetermined destiny And it comes from that upbringing. I was the one person in my family who looked up and said, wait a minute, why? Why does everyone in this family live paycheck to paycheck? Why is everyone in this family behind on their bills? Why is everyone in our church thinking and acting the way that they're doing? And so, growing up that way, there were two paths out. One was drugs, one was sports. And that's the only people I saw get out of my neighborhood. If we had a neighborhood, I went to 9 schools in 12 years. We lived in a car. Like it was, but the only where I lived in different places of inner city Detroit or Kansas City or wherever I was at the time, the only people I saw get ahead were the drug dealers or they were the professional athletes. So knowing I didn't want to do the drug thing, I went down the path of athletics and learned so many great lessons through life, paid for my college and attempted to play, professionally at several different things. And when that didn't work out for me, I took that same drive and everyday practice into the work environment, which was immediately stifled in corporate America, which is why I don't want to push my faith on anybody, but I think it's a God thing that I found not only an industry that allowed entrepreneurs to be entrepreneurs, but a company that actually supported and taught it.
Yeah.
And, the best advice I got right up front, and it was a chance encounter with a top real estate coach in Keller Williams that I happened to be in the restroom with. And I know you can't make this stuff up. And he said, we were talking about investments. I was kind of known as the guy who found investments. And he said, Mark, the best investment you will ever make is in you. And I said, wait, what does that mean? And he said, who's your coach? And I said, I don't have a coach. And he said, well, all those sports you played, did you have a coach? And I said, well, yeah, there's always a coach. And he said, well, who's your business coach? And I said, I don't have one. And he said, well, you might want to think about doing that. He's like, how much do you spend a year? This floored me. He said, how much do you spend a year on your education, on your training, your coaching? And I said, as little as possible, because I'm also a little bit of a smart ankle. And in my world, you make money by saving money, right? You don't waste money. Because there's never enough. You don't have enough to pay your bills. You don't have enough to eat. You don't have, right? So you grow up in this mentality of scarcity. And so when he asked me that, I thought, what a random, strange, personal question. I don't spend any money on that. I don't waste any money on that.
Sure, that normally gives an error. Yeah.
Yeah. Believe me, some of my best conversations happen there. So anyway, long story short, turns out that person was Tony DeCello and his wife was Diana Kokoska, who at the time was spending about $120,000 a year on her own personal development, which just blew me away because that was a good year as a real estate agent at that time for me. And I thought I had hit the lottery by making that kind of money. And growing up in an environment where my parents combined never made more than maybe $25,000 a year, that was unbelievable money. And so to think that someone was spending that on their own personal development just rocked me. So that was the greatest advice that I've ever received. Today, I don't even want to tell you, it's over $1 million that I've spent on training, education, coaching, personal development, et cetera. Not all at once and, obviously over time. But when I look back at 23 years and constantly failing, forward, growth, get better coaching, fail, forward, invest in yourself, get better, it's paid off.
Yeah. Well, there's what I hear is and I think it's true in entrepreneurs in general, as humans, the reason we've been able to, I guess, become the dominant species on the planet is we inherently have this.
You're going deep now. Now we're getting to biology.
No.
It was an asteroid, Chris.
But something about in every group, there's some person who thinks they're the exception to the rule.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I'd be a bit of a romantic, a bit of a dreamer.
Yeah.
A lot of people start with the exception to the rule.
Yeah.
They realize very quickly that they're not, and that dream's dead. You had the grit and the perseverance to back it up, and then a chance encounter with somebody who then gave you direction to take the hustle now and turn it into self-development.
My mom's middle name is Grace. And when I think about this conversation, there's a great book by Morgan Housel, Psychology of Money. Hopefully everyone has read it by this point. It's one of my, if not my favorite all time, one of them on personal finance, which is my deep passion outside of real estate and what I teach and all those things. And there's a chapter called No One is Crazy. And, when you, again, I don't want to blame everything on how you grow up, but it certainly sets the tone for how you react, respond, your personality, a lot of those things, right? The environment you grow up in. So I've had my head on a swivel my entire life, and it plays out in every area of my life. To this day, if I go to a buffet, I can't stop eating because there might not be food tomorrow. So there's some deep-seated things that you grow up with that you got to work on, right? You got to develop. Mom's middle name is Grace, and after reading that Morgan Housel book, that really opened my eyes that no one is crazy. Everyone has their personal experience, and so if you have grace for that, you understand to give people a little leeway. And so when I think about today's environment, social media, influencers, all the different things, and I think about my own children, I have to have grace for them, and here's why. If you told me that personal finance, getting ahead, work ethic, success in real estate, all those things were things that in our society I could personally control, meaning if I just get up every day and I do the work, it happens 100% of the time, then I'd have a different outlook. But when 97 out of 100 Americans retire with $1 million in retirement or more, or 97 out of 100 retire with less than $1 million or more, there's something going on with the environment that we can't just blame the individual constantly, right? And so I have my own theories on that, and that's I teach a lot of how to do this. You have 14,000 marketing messages coming at you every single day by Ivy League marketing graduates, right? And so when you think about that, the clutter, the noise, the social media, the influence, all those things, you have to have grace and just love people through their journey and hope that they learn early enough and often enough that, the good news for me is I went broke at 30 and was able to claw back and really not till 40 did I start on the wealth path that I'm on today, having built some significant wealth as a 30-year-old before losing it all, right? So I know we're bouncing all around there, but having grace for the idea that no one is crazy, loving them anyway, and then helping them along their journey and being okay when you look at your kid's food bill and it's more for the month than they made in their job, and you want to wring their neck and go, "Are you crazy? You spent $400 on food?"
It's conversation this morning.
So, and so hopefully you can be there as a mentor, as a guide. And this is, I'll wrap this whole thing up in one simple thought. And that is my faith today, the way I think about leadership, life, family, love, all comes from one man. It's my grandfather, 97 years old, still living, still goes to the senior center every single day. And I learned more by watching him than anything he ever said to me. And so my goal in life is to be that human being for at least one other human being. And if everyone did that, think about what the world would be.
Okay.
I got deep.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Welcome.
It's early. It's early. Prosperity Collabs. There we go.
All right, Mark, I have a couple pre-prepared questions.
Okay.
But honestly, I was saying before the podcast, there's like 4 conversations.
Hit me.
This is very difficult. I think I want to start with this one. I think a lot of people listening right now are on a success journey at some way, shape, or form.
Yep.
Most of them are on the edge of the seat.
Yep.
They're thinking, I want to buy an investment property.
Yeah.
I want to make more money in sales and real estate and sales. I want to build, a team like you built, like you built. What's the most important thing that they can do right now? Somebody who's in that launch pad position.
Yeah.
They're just, it's like, yeah.
This is the conundrum we all face in this industry, especially with everything going on today in the industry. But we have way too short of time horizons and plans and expectations. The saying goes that if you put your time horizon on a year, you'll always be disappointed. If you put your time horizon on 5 years, you'll always be delighted. And the reality is, in our microwave society today, we have to have it right now. And here's what I see happen more than anything else. We make long-term life decisions that have real big ramifications. We never quite break through that normal, natural ceiling of achievement. Everybody hits their ceiling all the time. Mm-hmm. It's the people who stay with the strategy, stay with the plan, and not to bring this back to our company, but I watch it in our own numbers. I have really good friends who have a bad year, and their answer to their bad year is changing brokerages, or it's blowing up their whole team, or it's going and investing money they don't have in some online lead generation platform they're not good at using, or whatever the case is. But they make very bad decisions based on the short term, and they're not thinking out long enough. When you're in this business, and I tell people all the time, and this might get me in a little bit of trouble, if you're getting in this business to have a great year and take some sales off the table, make a little bit of money, please don't. If you're in this business to develop and to build a world-class relationship with clients you truly care about and want to serve forever, please get in. This is about having a great career, not having a great year. So our time horizons, and especially, and again, I keep going back to, I just see it more and more with the generations coming up, is the quick knee-jerk reaction. I interviewed a guy the other day. He sold 1,200 houses last year. Wow. It's amazing. He's not even been in the business 4 years. Sounds amazing, right? And I get to meet these amazing human beings. And I was so excited to interview him, and it didn't go the way I wanted it to, only to find out that the way he had built his business, his net profit last year was minus $20,000. Now, as a guy who sees himself as it sounds terrible, but I want to protect this industry, right? And I want to protect the great people in it. And more than anything, I want to protect the consumer from bad experience in this industry, because it weighs on all of us. So, not to go too far down this road, but there's a lot of people in this business who kind of bought their way to their success, only to look up and realize they haven't made any money. They've taken, in this case, 1,200 sales off the table, that when I started, that 120 agents could have sold 10 houses and made a heck of a living and served their clients at the highest level. And because of the environment we find ourselves in, because of some of the technology aggregators, and I won't get on that soapbox, the world has changed. And so, those agents I'm coaching to have at least a 40% profit margin in their business, a la the MREA.
Right.
And so, there's so many people who look at that person, and this is the part that drives me insane. I have agents in my offices who know this individual's reputation, and they want to be like that person.
Yeah.
And I don't want them to be. Right. And so this is where you get the old man get off my lawn reputation is, please trust me, build a database of people that start with your sphere of influence, be world-class at what you do, go the extra mile, study more than anybody else, be the local real estate economist of choice, know every single zip code in your area, know every street, every school district, every tax code. This is working on yourself. Your best investment is you. And that will come through to your clients, and you will never again have to worry about money or where the next sale is coming from if you do those things. If you take the shortcut, will there be one person out of 1,000 who makes it and ends up on YouTube as a guru? There always is. But the other 999 will win every time if they follow the plan that we lay out.
So I see this with emerging agents quite a bit, right? They want to buy that success. Yeah. And I wonder sometimes, myself, I would much rather be on a stage in front of 2,000 people than I would be in a cocktail party.
Sure.
And because a cocktail party requires a different kind of vulnerability.
Yeah.
Right. And I think you have millennials or Gen Z or whatever.
It's my generation. It's all generations, but yeah.
Or afraid of being seen.
Yeah.
At times.
Yeah. Exposed.
Absolutely.
We were imposters.
And so it's much easier to just buy nameless, faceless people.
Yeah.
Rejection there doesn't hurt.
Correct.
But you're saying if you're not willing to, if no one's going to reject you, no one can say yes.
If you don't build a great foundation, then everything else you build on top of that. I'm looking into a solar roof for one of my properties, and I'm in love with the Tesla solar roof idea. I'm not in love with the $200,000 price tag.
Seems like there's a difficult ROI.
It's not. There's no such thing as that's a bad investment. And so when I think about this conversation, I think about so many of the agents are buying the $200,000 Tesla roof, and they haven't built the foundation, and they haven't put in the walls and the framing and all those good things. And so it always comes crashing down. And because we're in a 14-year economic expansion, the longest in U.S. history, which people forget sometimes, right?
Right.
And it shows up everywhere. It's showing up in your market. I could go off the rails and get myself in a lot of trouble with just different dumb ideas that happen in this business. I've had a lot of them myself.
That should have been one of the prompts. Dumbest thing you need to really.
You should edit all this out. But I will tell you, there's a new company on the rise, and they charge almost nothing to their real estate agents as a brokerage to make all their money on the escrow or on the other stuff. And that's
Play services.
It's not a new business idea. Just the way they're going about it is, it's almost nothing. And we all wake up with that idea one day and go, how I could do this better? How I could make a lot of money is I'll just not charge anything, but I'll make it. We all have those ideas. We're entrepreneurs. We're always looking for a better way to do it. And yet the reality is when there's normal market cycles, this happened in the mid-2000s. In my market, there was a very small per transaction fee if you use their title company kind of business model. And it started to gain, what agent's not attracted to a lot less cost, right? And the challenge is I watched that office in the mid-2000s, and you look at the parking lot, and there are new BMWs, new Mercedes, all the things all through that parking lot in the mid-2000s. And I had this aha that people are putting more value into the vehicle that they're driving than the vehicle that's going to drive their success in this business. So they're picking the lowest cost brokerage to operate in, for example, driving the highest priced car they can afford or can't afford, right? And so that all ties into what is the value, what's the idea? In a normal business cycle, like what happened in 2008, that company went away. Because without great foundation of business economics, a normal business cycle will wipe all that out, and we want that to happen. I mean, not we, but that's the natural progression of any business, right? Because we've had so many years in this industry of no real downturn, even when COVID hit and we thought the world was ending, we set records in every area of this industry. What that has done is perpetuated this myth that everyone's a genius, every idea is a good one. And so my fear is the reckoning is going to be hard felt. So, but the people who have great foundations, the people who aren't over leveraged, who haven't bet the farm on this new idea of generating leads of strangers, those are the people who are going to excel and take market share like never before. And you're going to see, we're already seeing it. Someone that is well known in this industry is just filed bankruptcy. Which is insane to me that you could have the run we've had over the last 14 years only to end up here. Imagine all the work we've done in the last 14 years. I mean, I think of all that work and to wake up today and end up in that position. Not
one damn year.
Well, you made one bad decision and you have a bad year, or the year doesn't keep going up.
Right.
And suddenly everything's at risk. So that's the issue.
I kind of like to think of it this way. Like this relationship is not subject to an algorithm.
Yeah,
right.
That's correct.
But if I'm invested in internet leads or on these things, they change the algorithm.
Yeah.
Somebody else changes their business model.
Yeah.
And now I don't have business.
Yeah.
Right. We see that happening with some of the aggregators right now. Right.
Yeah.
And they're going on.
Yeah.
So I absolutely. So if you want to start that journey now, invest in relationships, invest in building a database based on real people, real community, and build your influence that way.
Yeah. I'm not critical. This will surprise some people. I'm not critical about online leads. I think people misunderstand what an online lead is. So I'm sitting across the table from a single mom who's just sold one house this month, and it came from a lead from Zillow. I'm not bashing Zillow or the single mom. What people misunderstand is these online lead aggregators are a tool to help you do what you should be doing anyway. They're not a substitute for doing what you should be doing anyway. If you want to make it super simple, which is my favorite thing to do, I'm a pretty simple guy. If you build a database, you meet people every day and you continue to build that database, and then you communicate regularly and you share valuable information. And I'm not going to pick on recipe cards and all those things, but real world value that clients care about. And then when a opportunity to serve them comes along, you serve them in a world-class way that protects their best interest, then you will build an amazing business. And we have countless examples in the tens of thousands of examples of that in this company.
Right.
The misunderstanding is I can shortcut all of that foundation and I can go straight to the payday.
It's like a burn-in chart.
It's exactly right. And that's the environment that we wake up in today.
So a healthy approach, I think we teach this in Keller Williams through Ignite, is we're making those 10 contacts a day, and you're so 10 contacts a day. You're adding 10 contacts to your database a day, right? So you're building it. Yeah. And so say you've got $800,000 dream, but you only have 50 people in the database, and you're building it as fast as you can through meeting people. Yep. You can supplement that growth through online leads, but you, with the mindset of I'm committing to a lifelong relationship, not a burn and churn for this next transaction.
Well, you think about it so I had an agent in my office who had an online lead aggregator, and there were 3,000 uncontacted leads in their database. And I said to them, and I have lots of these stories of, why are you paying for these leads you're not going to contact? And their response was, if I stop paying, they'll take them away. And I said, good. Yeah. Right. It's the same story with any of the lead aggregators that sell certain zip codes. And I have this conversation all the time. I was looking through the P&L of an agent, and the agent had made $250,000 in commissions last year from this online lead platform, only to realize they had spent almost $300,000 for the online lead platform. Yeah. And when I brought this to her attention, I said, you do realize you're losing money to go to work every day from this environment. Like, she has her sphere of influence and other things, thank goodness. But, and I said to her, why in the world would you keep doing this? And her response was, if I give up my zip code, they'll give it to someone else.
Well, good. Somebody else can subsidize them.
And I said, great. Like that. I mean, what are you doing? Right. So that's the kind of craziness we get into when we try and shortcut. And for some reason, this industry has always been an industry where your volume or your units somehow make you more credible the more you do. And so if you did 1,200 units, then you must know more than I do at 500 units. Right. You must be smarter than me. You must be better than me. I must listen to you. And that's a dangerous game to play because you don't see the P&Ls. Several years ago now, we went to a criteria standard at Keller Williams that if you're going to be on a stage, if I'm going to interview you, Gary's going to interview you, then we need to see your P&L. We need to make sure that we're not perpetuating this conversation. This became an issue because we had some people on stage who weren't running the best of businesses, and other people brought it to our attention that said, why are we highlighting this person? Because everybody's going to get the wrong idea of what they should go do to build a big business. Yeah. And I thought, what a fair critique. And so we now check P&Ls so that we know that we're highlighting someone who's actually doing it what we would call the right way, and not harming the next generation of people who aspire to be like that person.
Yeah. I mean, Sam, my producer, hears this all the time, but real estate success.
Sam's funny, by the way.
She is hilariously funny. Yeah,
Do you ever have her on this side of the camera?
We're going to do that.
I don't know. I don't think you should. Just kidding.
We'll have to have that little B button on. But real estate success is not supposed to be sexy.
No.
And if it's sexy, you're doing something wrong.
Right.
It's boring.
Yes.
Good business.
It's a good business.
So invest in community. Learn how to be a business person first.
Yep.
Start running a P&L. Run it on your family. Run it on your...
Well, let me back up. Learn who you are first, which is why the self-development conversation is so multifaceted. But you need people around you who are going to be honest with you and tell you, Chris, you're a great speaker. You are awesome at this thing. You're not awesome at the follow-up piece. Whatever, I'm making this up. I don't know. But if I were your coach, what I would be looking for, number one, I want to find out what are the things you're amazing at, because what you'll find in this business and any service-based business, when you stay in that lane, those are $1,000 an hour activities, right? The people who make a couple million a year doing what we do are amazing at those $1,000 an hour activities, and they stay in those activities. And what they do is they find amazing people who are awesome at the other things, and they bring them they attract them to their vision. And I think of the person I hired, her name's Rebecca Rose, and she today runs several businesses, and she's amazing, and started off as a $30,000 a year agent services coordinator. But what she is amazing at, straight out of rocket fuel, are all the things that I am terrible at. And I spent too much of my career trying to be good at things because I thought that was the badge of honor. I'm supposed to be good at everything. Like, don't let anybody know that I'm really bad at this thing. Today, I look at those things and I celebrate the things I'm terrible at. And then I find people who are absolute geniuses in those areas. And suddenly everybody gets to make more money and do those things. So it's first understanding who you are, then, because you might be watching this because we make excuses of why we're not succeeding and other people do all the time. And it's really easy to do. We can find 10 different reasons why anyone watching this will never succeed. We could all find it. You can find 100 different reasons why I'll never succeed. And I'm going to tell you, go succeed anyway. And there are hacks to that if you want the cheat codes to that. And these are some of them. Know who you are first. If you're someone who's not great at the business conversation and understanding P&Ls and understanding all this stuff, it's okay. You might be amazing at, y'all have Bunko out here?
Yeah.
Okay. I had an agent who built a $30 million a year business working maybe 10 hours a week, had the most amazing lifestyle I've ever seen. And her only lead acquisition strategy was Bunko. She had Bunko parties. She loved them. They drink wine, and she got so many real estate deals. But she is an expert at generating leads through that one avenue. And then she's world class at understanding her clients and their needs and the properties and all those things. She's not good at business.
Yep. Okay.
So what she did is she asked me to coach her. I took her as far as I could, and then I handed her off to someone who was even better than I was at that. And today she runs an enormous business that she still doesn't know what P&L stands for. And that's okay. We all have those things. And so you got to figure out who you are. What are you great at? What are you not great at? We learned this in the automotive industry many years ago, if you study that industry. And you look at the difference in the 70s and 80s of American car sales versus Japanese car sales. And, there's a lot of books been written on this. Many of you have heard the story, but it's fascinating that in our society, we look at weakness as something bad. And we like to point them out and poke at them. We're in an election year. You're going to hear a lot of this, right? Here's all your weaknesses. And in Japan, they don't even try and fix their weaknesses. They only focus on your strengths, and they leverage out all the weaknesses. And so, we the famous story is we discover this on the auto line in Japan, when at the end of the auto line, they're like, "Where's your rubber mallets to poke everything back into place where it's supposed to be?"
Right.
And they said, "We design it right on the front end, so we don't need rubber mallets." Like that's the difference between how we go at it. And there's a lot of great lessons to learn there. They could learn some lessons from us too. But in this case, understand who you are, then find out what you're not great at, then find the best resource you have for solving that issue.
Right. And red light, green light.
And don't spend money you haven't earned.
There you go. So you mentioned, it's funny because you're talking, I was thinking who, not how, but you said that.
I love Who Not How. I love
your books, but
yeah. I mean, Ben Hardy and Dan Sullivan wrote their trilogy now of books that I think are helpful for any entrepreneur. Gap in the Gain is a big one. Gap in the Gain needs to be high school curriculum, and we could go off on a tangent on this one book alone. But it's one of the things I'm recognizing in my own life and in so many others of us, that we forget to stop and celebrate the wins and realize how far we've come, because we're always chasing that next thing, and the goalpost is always moving away from us. And a life lived like that is super frustrating, and nothing's ever good enough, and you can make millions of dollars and it's still not enough, and you're still chasing and doing all those things, rather than looking back, being grateful for, thankful for all the thing where you came from, right? And all the wins you've had and all the different things you've accomplished in your life. And we all have those stories. The latest is 10X is easier than 2X. That's a great book on top of the other two books' foundation.
Okay. Well, this brings me to one of our pre-prepared questions. 3 most influential authors. I was going to ask you books, but I was like, that's going to be shift.
Yeah. Authors, I can't give you 3. I can give you 10. And I apologize, but I'll tell you I travel a ton. I have 50 something road trips this year. So I listen to everything.
Your 8th trip of the year. Here, January 20th.
Yeah, isn't that fun?
That's phenomenal.
And I have to get this in. I know I'm in California, but my Chiefs just made it back to the Super Bowl. Yeah. So I've found a reason not to go every year. And so of all years that I don't have the time to go, I'm going to figure out how to go to the Super Bowl this year. So it's going to be 51 trips. But anyway, but I listen to my books. And, my partner, Jason Abrams, makes fun of this all the time. He has, Mark Willis too. Mark Willis our new CEO, has maybe 1,000 books behind his desk. And I'll go into his office and say, "What's this book about?" And he'll give me the rundown. I don't have to read them all now because he just but he's so well read, Jason too. And so they give me a hard time about listening to my books. But I have, Audible and Blinkist and all those things. And if I kind of learned this from Gary Keller, ironically, because no one has more books in their office. In my entire life, I haven't seen the number of books that you'll see in Gary Keller's office. They overflow out into the halls. And I don't want to guess, there's 50,000 books in that man's office, and his house has another. Like it's crazy. But he taught me something, and that was, after you've read so many books, there's going to be things you want to read, you want to find out, you want to learn, all those things. If you get 20 pages into the book and it's not teaching you something new, then read the clip notes, read the summary, and move on. Yeah. And that lesson has allowed me. I've probably absorbed. I don't want to give you a number. I don't want to make it sound too high or too low, but it's maybe 1,000 books in the last 5 years. Most of them have been the Blinkist version, the short versions. And then when I find something that's super intriguing, I've read every word of Gap in the Gain, Who Not How, 10X Easier to 2X. So obviously Benjamin Hardy, Dan Sullivan, my two new favorite authors. I have a lot of personal finance stuff. And here's the short version why. We're all working, hopefully, because we want to earn an income so that we can have a better life for our children than we had. And so if we understand that's the end in mind, I'm a pretty simple thinker. I am what I call ambitiously lazy. I have high work velocity. I work a lot of hours. I do all those things. But what I mean by that is I want to do the least amount of effort for the highest amount of return at all times. Yeah. If someone else can do this at a higher level than me, and I can outsource it, I'm doing it. And that's a lesson I've learned over time. So I'm ambitiously lazy, and I want the biggest bang for my buck. So I'm not going to spend too much time on things that are going to waste time. When I get into something, then I'll spend as much time as I can. I'll reread Think and Grow Rich once a year, Morgan Housel's Psychology. I mean, I do a lot of personal finance books because that's the end goal that we're all fighting for. So I'm beginning with the end in mind, working my way backwards and learning what can those lessons teach me that will help me in my day-to-day.
Yeah. Focus on your 80-20 and your 20% with extreme prejudice, right? That's word philosophy, or what would you say was the
4%? It's a 20% of your 20%. So we're plussing it, but yes, word velocity. Yep.
Okay. And then this was an incredible hack, and it's basically focused on the 20% in the book.
Yep.
Right? Why waste your time on the 80%? Look at the 20%. If the 20% does add up to the 4%, move on.
There are thousands of books written every year that are great, I'm sure, but that will not change your life. There are one or two that will. And the problem is we don't know which one or two those are. We're all in a different place in life. So you have to do enough to figure out which are going to be those and then go deeper. So if we go to authors, I'm going to give you a ton of, the foundational understanding, leverage, real estate investing. I know a lot of people are not big fans of Robert Kiyosaki and some of the things he's gone through, but like Rich Dad, Poor Dad, just understanding the lessons that he teaches in that book. I told you before, I don't borrow money, so I love everything Dave Ramsey's put out. So, but here's the thing: I never get too attached to any one single human being, because first of all, we're all flawed and everyone's making mistakes. Kiyosaki files bankruptcy after making hundreds of millions of dollars, right? You don't have to look further than this presidential election to see all kinds of flaws in all of us, right? And so I don't get too attached to one, but I will take the nuggets that help me from anybody, and I'm open to everything. I'll question everything. I want to know. I have that inner curiosity. Why? So, but I will tell you, Dr. Thomas Stanley might be the undisputed, in my world, he's the undisputed king of personal finance books. And unfortunately, he passed away. But Millionaire Next Door and Stop Acting Rich. Stop Acting Rich should be high school curriculum right now, because with all of the again, the day and age we live in, you can't know someone's net worth by looking at them, seeing what they drive, doing whatever, and yet everything we do is to show everybody else. With Facebook, my goodness, if my life could be half as good as my friends on Facebook, it would be unbelievable, right?
I just saw this, the data on it, and it was looking at what people spend on experiences by age. And millennials outspend every other generation, on experience.
Yep.
And largely because they're trying to keep up with Instagram.
Yeah.
Right? It's why going to some of these places like Yosemite or Griffith Park in LA is unbearable now.
Yeah.
Because they're all there taking pictures.
Yeah. That's right.
Yeah. But it's absolutely that. Stop acting rich.
The good news is hopefully they learn at a young enough age it doesn't harm them long term. Like, I have a friend who has a 23-year-old son who basically lost everything in his first business venture. And he's devastated. Yeah. And his dad said to him, look, the best thing about being 23 and broke is everybody's broke at 23. So take what you learned. That it's my first real estate investment ever. Mm-hmm. I went in with my 3 best friends. We all put in every dollar we had. We lost every dollar we had. None of those 3 guys ever bought another piece of real estate. I looked at it as a $4,000 workshop on what not to do. Absolutely. So, personal finance authors are great. Obviously, I'm going to put in Gary Keller. That man has changed my life. His Millionaire Real Estate Investor book is the most misunderstood, undervalued book on real estate investing I think I've ever seen. And the reason I say that, it is the first book that promotes a real estate agent to be a part of the process. Right. Every other book's how to cut the real estate agent out, which misses the whole point of building leverage in a real estate portfolio. You want to save whatever percent of commission, and that might be a great philosophy for you for 2 or 3 transactions. But if you want to truly get to where you got into this to replace your income with passive income through real estate investing, I've never seen anybody do that without the help of a professional knowing what they're doing. And that means lots of doors, that means lots of systems, that means lots of all the other things. So Gary Keller's book on investing is amazing. Obviously, The Millionaire Real Estate Agent changed the game. I single-handedly blame Gary Keller for all of the success of all the big teams in this industry, including myself. And the one thing is a brilliant book. He might be working on a new one right now. No one succeeds alone. That kind of, he shared that he had a T-shirt on. He said, "I'm working on a book," so I can share that. But there's countless others. I would tell you, one of the herd mentality mistakes we make is we hear some guru we perceive as a guru. We don't realize they're flawed. They have their own stuff. They got their own issues. Their favorite authors don't translate to you necessarily.
Haters.
Atomic Habits by James Clear is probably the one book every real estate agent needs to read and reread every year in this business. And there's a passage in that book that talks about the conversation we had earlier about being boring, and I'll get it way wrong, but it basically says you have to fall in love with the idea that success is boring, and the repetitive nature of the things that you don't love are what actually gets you where you want to go. When you earn the right to offshoot those and leverage those out, then you get to win at a higher level. But you have to get comfortable being uncomfortable with the boring. Yeah. And back to one of the things that scares a lot of people about this business is they hear you got to build a database, you got to lead generate, you got to do those things. And they immediately in their heads think of all the worst ways in the world you could do that. I'm going to, in a TCPA friendly compliant way, cold call all these strangers and alienate them while they're having dinner with their families. And I'm going to call them, "Hey, this is Marc King over at Keller Williams. I want to do." That is not the best way to lead generate at all, ever, and never has been. Right? I know Glenn Ross made it cool, but it's not how it works. And so let's just get that myth out of there. Everyone who watches this, if we sat down with them for 30 minutes, we would find their genius. Yeah. And that genius might be door knocking, but that wouldn't be my genius. If you door knocked in my neighborhood, number one, no one there owned their home. Number two, you might get attacked by a dog. You might get shot. You can't teach the same thing to everybody. Right. I have this thing I'm working on, and I'm writing my own stuff on the side. It's what I do for fun. And it's this idea of ask and bask. And you can't give anyone great advice, in my opinion, until you've asked them enough questions and basked in what they're going through to truly help them take one small step towards where they want to go, because we're all different. So, all
right, Mark, I know we're coming in on time. I'm going to throw a big old softball across the plate.
Okay, I can handle those.
There you go. You and I have another question I do want to get to.
Yeah.
See if we can squeeze it in.
Yeah.
But big old softball. You mentioned Keller Williams a couple times. Obviously, you're the president of Keller Williams.
Yeah.
You're on this journey. You're also an operating principal.
Yep.
You own a couple more market centers.
I do.
We say that.
Yeah. I have franchises.
Franchises.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. You give away half of your profits every year.
I do.
That's insane.
I know. Think about the salesperson Gary Keller is.
Tell me about it.
Take all the risk. And yeah.
Gareth, did you get into something where they're like, guess what? You're going to make a lot of money, but you're going to get half of it away.
Here's why. It started with my experience as a real estate agent. And what I learned is Gary Keller he's great at a lot of things. There's one thing that I've never seen anyone get close to his league in, and that is the model building side of Gary Keller. He builds more models. And by the way, not every model he builds is perfect and awesome and change the world, but he realizes it and then tries to make that model as good as it can be. Following the models of the MREA taught me that I don't have to reinvent anything. I can just follow something that a genius has already put out there in this field, and I can go have as much success as I want. And what I realized from friends and people at other companies, and I moved 7 times in 7 years as part of my job, and I experienced a lot of different real estate brokerages. And the analogy I would give you that is probably not a great one, and I don't want to dumb down our brand at all, but if I go to McDonald's in London, the Big Mac tastes the same, or very close to the same as it tastes in Austin, Texas. If I go anywhere in the United States, a Big Mac tastes exactly the same. I walk in and it looks the same. It feels the same. I have the same experience no matter where I go. In service-based industries, it's harder to find those tight models. So what I would tell you about Keller Williams that makes it vastly different than our competitors as I have experienced it is the model is there and all you have to do is follow it. And so, we have a model that on any random year, but most years, 98% of our franchises are profitable. That's unheard of in any franchise business, including real estate. They're so tight. You can walk into a Keller Williams office anywhere in the country, and we're not to the level. We got work to do. We are not in the level that a McDonald's is, but we are more so than any other brand I've experienced. And I have these conversations with my counterparts at other places, right? Nick Bailey at Remax and I would talk about this, right? So it's how do we get our systems and models? Because you think about it, there's a simple chart that Gary taught us years ago. If you want to build a business based on world-class talent, that's going to be a harder road, and it's going to be harder to scale. So the analogy there would be the NFL. There's only a few Brock Purdy's out there, or Jordan Loves, or Patrick Mahomes, or whoever your favorite quarterback is. In fact, there might be 5 or 10 people on the planet that any given year can play like Lamar Jackson or whoever, right? So if you're building a scalable business model where there's only 5 or 10 people in the world who could do that thing, you're not going to scale. Yeah. So you need systems and models like McDonald's has crafted where high school kids can come in there and you can have a successful, thriving business. And what I would argue is those are the systems and models that if you just follow them, I can point back to every failure I've had as a leader of a franchise, and every single time I've diverted from the model. That's why.
I love it. Yep. Absolutely love it. Okay. This is going to be a lightning question because
okay.
Too, and you're supposed to get on another stage in 8 minutes. You're raising young people.
Yes.
I'm raising young people.
Yes.
You have, I think you mentioned 2.
Yeah.
I have 6.
Oh my goodness.
So you got a couple more laughs to do.
Bless you.
What
are the ages?
So 19 to age 6.
Oh my gosh.
Every level of education.
That is the best time in the world.
I played Monopoly Junior last night for a very long time.
I love it.
But one piece of advice you would give to a young person that if they heard it would change their life.
How young?
Say young adult, like 19-year-old, 20-year-old, But I'm literally going to show this to my teenager right after. So.
Yeah, that's perfect. Listen to your parents. No, that's they don't do that. They don't do that. Yeah, they ignore that too. No, how you start out your life will determine how long you have to figure out all the mistakes you've made. You will make a lot of mistakes. And let me walk you through, and this is, again, I'm going to go back to personal finance. We have way too many kids who are taking on massive amounts of student loans to go to the college that has a pretty campus or because their friend went there. If I could give any advice, and no one wants to hear it, and this is why they're not going to listen to it, is do not borrow money to go to college. There are so many programs. There are so many ways. I worked my way through college. I look at all my friends today at 50 years old, and they're still climbing out. And they're very successful, and they're still climbing out of that college debt from 30 years ago. Yeah. And it sets the wrong tone for every decision you make. You make different decisions. You stay in jobs you don't like longer. It just changes everything. You marry different people. You decide to have kids. You don't decide to have kids. You don't get the pet you want. You buy the cars you don't want, right? And that starts you on a journey where you start to make better decisions earlier in life, which allows you to accelerate. There is zero reason why any kid, if I could create RoboKid right now and they had to listen to me in every single area, I believe on an average income, I could help them be wealthy and retire by 55 years old, and I can do it because it's math. So it would be, from a personal point. Now that's boring and that's not like going to make any headlines, and kids aren't going to listen to it.
It isn't family.
And I, this is going to sound harsh, but I blame us, the parents, for allowing I have never met a 17-year-old who was wise enough to make a decision around $10,000, let alone hundreds of thousands of dollars. That's how you get $1.6 billion in student loan, or $1.6 trillion in student loan debt. And then that teaches them, I can just borrow and delay. You wake up in your 20s, you got to have 2 new cars because all your friends have cars, and now you have a job and you got to get there, and they got to be safe, and they have to, they have to do all these things. And then you have to buy a house in the right neighborhood because you're going to have kids and they can't go to bad schools. So you're going to have to, so we justify our financial mistakes, and then we wake up at 50 and we've worked our tails off for 30 years to be unhappy in a financial place that we regret. And so if you could change that would be amazing. Let me switch real quick. Invest in yourself.
All right.
Invest in yourself. Pick something that you love to learn about and learn. I don't care what it is. I don't care if it's in your career field. I have several different topics that I've studied in my life because I'm fascinated by it. There's always a lesson to learn. Astrophysics is something I've studied for many years. I can tell you how far Alpha Centauri is and how far we are from the sun and how long it takes light to get here and all those fun things, because I'm fascinated that we're on a spinning ball in the middle of nothingness. I can't wrap my head around it. So I'm fascinated by that, right? Yeah. But it was funny, Diana Kokoska and I studied positive psychology for many years, and that was fascinating to me. And then I got off this tangent and studying the organizational chart of the mafia, and that was fascinating to me. So anyway, find something you love to study. Stay learning based. You don't know everything that you're supposed to know by the time you get out of school. School is a great experience, and it's a coming of age thing, but the learning only starts when you get out of school. It doesn't end there.
Very nice. Well, I love it. So knowledge is not just utilitarian.
Hey, man, that was
love to learn.
You could have said it much faster.
Well, I do it, Ken. Anyway, well, hey guys, thank you so much for sitting in on my coaching session.
Before you end, can I say one more thing? All right, I'm doing one more thing, and this is I want to say this. I hang out with 800 people who run market centers around this company, and there are very few who go to the level to help their agents and pour into career development and people development than like you do. And so I personally am going to be referring you to my Uber driver because he's looking at a career in real estate.
Sure.
However, I just have to say that you all have a gym here. The jury's still out on Sam.
Well, I agree. I think there's potential, but it's a diamond in the rough. So with that, thanks everybody. Tune in next time. And Mark, I am just floored. I mean, the generosity of time and all that, man. Yeah. Thank you guys.
Thank you. All right. That was fun.